Breaking news, people can't read, more at 11. We have a new interview for Final Fantasy XIV, so it must be a new morning, talking about the role the Warrior of Light's going to have in the story moving forward, Yoshi P's favorite character out of Dawntrail, and job design! Oh, the horror! Hello, everybody, I am Jmulls, and let's get into this. Hello, everybody, I am Jmulls, and let's get into this. For today's interview, we have PC Games N. After Dawntrail, Final Fantasy XIV director Yoshida wants to show the strength of the hero. And after a Dawntrail vacation, FF14 director Naoki Yoshida tells us he's eager to focus on the strength of the hero as the MMORPG expands. I like the sound of that. This is an interview from Ken Alsop. I'll leave a link in the description down below if you wish to peruse it yourself, as we're going to be focusing in on the specific parts that I find the most interesting and relevant. So let's start with arguably my favorite element of the 7.3 story, that one cutscene that we get that's dependent upon your job. We get an entirely unique animation, or like some jobs share certain animations, but it's still really dang cool to see your Warrior of Light do something in a cutscene. Yoshida tells us via Square Enix translator, when it comes to expressing the unique role of the player as the hero, and in order to showcase really cool cutscenes and sequences where we can provide a real hero's experience and showcase the strength of the hero, we do want to put more focus on this moving forward. Within the MSQ, we can't always provide a unique expression for the jobs in every patch, Yoshida says, but when it comes to using the jobs in battle content and bringing out more of the uniqueness of each job, we are working on a big update. This is also in reference to that one fight in the dungeon that splits you off to go fight your own like 1v1 boss. I love that boss, it's really cool. I've actually been really enjoying the dungeons in Dawntrail, especially recently, even though like navigating around them is still cookie cutter at best. Even though the layouts of each of the dungeons are extremely repetitive, the boss design has been pretty nice in my opinion. But now it's time for everyone's favorite topic, job homogenization. Yay! Yoshi P had teased that he wanted to counteract class homogenization in an overhaul that was planned for 8.0. As for what that will look like, he explains that, to quote, people might think of it as an expansion of the system that we have in the game, so the players who already like the way things are can feel at ease that nothing is going to change for their experience, but we are trying to do something new on top of what we already have. So, let's read the rest of this, but before you put up your pitchforks and your torches and all that, I don't think that sounds like too bad. It feels like corporate speak to me, and I'll get into why later. Yoshida says he's unable to share more on this at this point in time, and I doubt we'll get much news on the matter until at least FanFest 2026, I agree, but he re-emphasizes, in terms of the individuality of each job, and also showcasing the player character to the fullest in terms of how they are the hero of the game, we want to continue placing importance on both of these aspects moving forward. If you were among those frustrated by a more backbench role in Dawntrail's MSQ, that'll likely come as welcome news. It is for me. This really does feel like Yoshi P kind of lumping in the feeling that the MSQ doesn't change too much mechanically depending upon what your job is, and also when you're playing the job, all the complaints they've been getting, rightfully so in my opinion, for job homogenization and a lot of jobs feeling kind of the same or having very similar things going across multiple jobs. So why did I say don't read into this too much or something to that effect? Well, historically, if you look at one of Final Fantasy XIV's biggest competitors in the scene, World of Warcraft, one of the biggest reasons we've seen people leave that game, historically speaking, is them messing up the jobs too much, called classes in World of Warcraft, where there were a few expansions where like it seemed like all the time they were just adjusting and augmenting how your class plays. And a class or a job in an MMORPG is the main lens upon which you are interfacing and interacting with the game. Some people just like what they have and don't really want it to change, and a lot of people kind of feel that way. So if you're always augmenting or you change it significantly enough to where it's no longer recognizable, or you remove the element that they found fun and engaging to begin with, it kind of takes the entire game out of focus, if that makes sense, and can compromise a lot of people's investment and enjoyment in the product. So through that context, this quote feels to me like Yoshi P's trying to appease both sides here, where it's like, if you're kind of satisfied or you just don't particularly care too much one way or the other about how your job plays right now, or you just like the way that Final Fantasy XIV plays as a video game, he's essentially just reassuring you, saying, hey, we're not gonna uproot everything here, right? We're not overhauling the combat system or anything like that, fundamentally so. It's still going to feel and play like Final Fantasy XIV. But what he's trying to get across here, at least to me, what it feels like he's trying to get across here, is they want to take the existing foundation of Final Fantasy XIV's combat and add on top of that. Which sounds to me like what a lot of people wanted. A lot of the times, myself included, people will look back at previous expansions like Stormblood, for instance, and say, wow, I vastly preferred how jobs played back then as opposed to now. Too much has been removed, too much has been homogenized or pruned away from these jobs, and they lose their teeth, they lose their edge, their individuality that made you go, oh cool, I feel like I am playing a, let's say, Dark Knight right now, or a Warrior, or a Dragoon, stuff like that. Replacing Dragoon's jump with just a charge removes a bit of that class fantasy, even if you can jump with other abilities. It's still like pulling back on that overall class fantasy and making it feel more in line with everything else. That's just a small example and not the only one, just something to try and get across what I'm talking about here. Let's also look at tanks. Over the course of Dawntrail, I've played to varying degrees a bit of each of the different tanks. I kind of just have all the abilities on their own keybind because they function and fulfill essentially the same role, including like when you do big damage. There's slight differences, don't get me wrong, but overall a lot of them do feel the same. It's like Warrior's unique charm of yesteryear was that it was the one that could do a bunch of self-healing or had the big inner release window. Well, that's kind of across the board now, not to the same degree or anything like that, but a lot of the tanks have something that fulfills a similar role. So instead of getting their own big like class fantasy, it feels more like a role fantasy, which isn't as specific and arguably memorable as focusing on individual job fantasy. There are some people that just don't like the way Final Fantasy XIV plays as a video game. I have my own issues with it, right? But it's not like it's going to become a different game. It's not going to become World of Warcraft. It's not going to become Guild Wars 2. It's not going to not be Final Fantasy XIV. So adding stuff on top of what already exists, we have to wait and see. This doesn't really tell us all that much. We don't know the scale, we don't know the scope of it, we don't know exactly what they're doing. Is this across the board or only to a few jobs that they deem to be heavily homogenized? What does this mean? What does this look like? I don't think it's fair to draw massive sweeping conclusions from this as of right now. I think it's fine and fair to be upset at the current state of the gameplay of a lot of the jobs right now. I am too, to a degree. But we have to wait, as even this article says, pretty much until FanFest to get any real concrete details. What I do like hearing, though, is that they want the individuality of each job to show more in basically the MSQ. I love that direction, and I hope they go into that direction even more. It was one of my favorite elements of 7.3, and it's something I hope to see more in the future. And it has historically been one of my biggest issues with the MSQ in Final Fantasy XIV. Throughout most of the MSQ, your character just kind of stood there. If we can actually get some action in the cutscenes and do some things and enforce our will upon some enemies or the scene overall, that'd be really cool in my opinion. This next bot concerns that one section in 7.3 where we go on a bit of a puzzle quest for a bit. A bit dragged on, to be fair, but I like the idea of trying to supplement the story with, well, gameplay. Shocking idea, I know. And on this topic, Yoshi P talks about, it's not necessarily the case that that kind of experience will always be incorporated into the main scenario. But if the idea is interesting and we think that it would be fun for the main scenario, then there's a possibility that we would incorporate it. I think this is the right approach. You don't want to just like add an arbitrary puzzle section in all the time, because then it gets formulaic and just becomes a bit tedious. But if it's appropriate, I don't see an issue with it. Of course, players who want to immerse themselves in the story and really experience it as much as they can found it really refreshing. On the other hand, there are some players who just want to rush through the main scenario as fast as they can, and for them, this kind of element was more of a burden for them and it got in the way. But at the end of the day, the important thing is the experience of the players, and the story is a part of that. So we want to take a look at what good feedback we received and what bad feedback we received, and we can look at making the best of all that feedback in order to create something new. Here's my opinion that may be a little bit controversial. I couldn't care less about this group right here. My opinion, it's a video game. I don't want it to just be a cutscene simulator. Use the freaking medium. I don't mind very long cutscenes. I play this game after all, and I also play Xenosaga and Xenoblade. I am accustomed to very long cutscenes. I grew up on Metal Gear. However, I fundamentally dislike like and disagree with the idea and notion that when they add anything that remotely resembles gameplay, that, oh, some people can't handle it, oh, some people don't want this. It shouldn't just be a bunch of cutscenes back to back. There should be gameplay. Was that specific section from 7.3 probably a little bit too much? Yeah, possibly. There are ways to almost certainly tackle a section like that more elegantly, perhaps more concisely, but what I disagree with is the idea that they shouldn't ever do sections like that again. I want more gameplay in the MSQ. Some of my favorite sections in the MSQ historically have been when they actually put gameplay in there, and I don't believe the experience of the main story should be compromised in any way for people that don't care about the story and just want to skip through the entire thing. People play games differently, absolutely, but it's a Final Fantasy game. The story and the gameplay associated with that should not be compromised for people that have no interest in playing the game to begin with. Unfortunately, if you're a story skipper, that might cause some small progress blockers. To quote, they usually would skip all the text just to get to the end of the MSQ, Yoshida remarks, but this time around, they actually need to read the text in order to clear that portion. EGAD, reading in the year 2025. He says it's difficult for us to tweak it in such a way that's accommodating for the players who really want to immerse themselves and enjoy it as much as they can, and also for those players who just want to rush through everything because they want to play the latest Extreme Trial as fast as possible. Again, my opinion, I couldn't care less about this group right here. Couldn't care less. It is fundamentally impossible for me to raise even a nano crap of sympathy for that audience. I do not believe nor agree with the idea the MSQ should be designed in any way so that it's seamless and you can just skip through it as much as humanly possible, so the content has to be brain dead in order to accommodate that. If you want to find a way to make the story optional to accommodate those players, absolutely, but the design of the MSQ itself should not be compromised, in my opinion, to accommodate people that don't want to play it. I don't care if people want to skip cutscenes themselves, that's not a problem to me. The problem is if the content is designed to make it far easier for people just to skip through it all, so that the people that are actually trying to play the content have a lesser experience as a direct result. If you want to add a big blue button in the top right corner or something that says, click this to skip the MSQ for this patch, I have no problem with that. But don't sterilize the gameplay experience of the MSQ for people that don't enjoy the MSQ. Give them a way to skip it all they want. I don't care about that. In my opinion, make the MSQ as fun and engaging as possible, and then design around that after it's already done. Oh, and also Galulja is Yoshi P's favorite character, in Donjil at least. Not one of my picks, but hey, he's no Sphene, you know what I mean though. No shale. But hey, we're all entitled to our own opinions here. Nothing wrong with that. So yeah, overall, I think the interview was pretty good. I like the fact that they want to do more sections that incorporate gameplay and different gameplay systems into the MSQ. I like the fact they talked about having more instances where you feel your job in the MSQ as well. I like that stuff. I thought 7.3 was better for their inclusions. And I can already imagine people taking the one section of him talking about job design out of context, or just in the worst light humanly possible. I think if you were planning or hoping that 8.0 was going to bring a complete overhaul for how Final Fantasy XIV fundamentally played, that just wasn't realistic, right? But if your main concern was that you liked Final Fantasy XIV combat, it's just over the years, too much has been removed or homogenized. I feel like what Yoshi P talked about there was like addressing those concerns specifically. We'll have to see what he actually is talking about when we get to the Fan Fest, when we get to the announcements of 8.0, and I can only imagine all the interviews we're gonna get then. I just don't think it's healthy enough to draw any conclusions about what 8.0 is bringing right now until we actually get more definitive information and specific concrete information and facts about 8.0 when the time comes. And if you want to be here to see my reactions to all that information when we eventually get it, you should leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. Jmulls Gaming for the gram, Jmulls G for everything else. I have a Discord in the description down below. And call me Saint Nick because I got a sack of because I got a list and I'm checking it twice. Got a wish list for 8.0 of Final Fantasy XIV. If you want to see what I'm personally hoping for, you should check out this video right here for more. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet, wait for it again.